Thank you all for coming out at this time. We want to just acknowledge this is about the life of Orlando Taylor III, a 23-year-old African-American man in this city who left out of his house Sunday morning and had an encounter with the Springfield Police Department, and they murdered him. We just left the district attorney's office, and the family contends that no matter what that tape shows, the footage shows, everything is compromised. The family wants you to know that on yesterday, Captain Duda from the Springfield Police Department called the family to set up a meeting with the mayor to watch the footage. Several moments later, a private investigator called the house and said, "Would you like to come and sit down and see the footage?" We said we had an appointment with the district attorney's office to see the film today. We were told that we didn't need the district attorney, that they had access to the footage, in a clear violation of the general laws of the Commonwealth. People have been messing with this video and film as if it was a viewing to an open movie. How does Captain Duda or a private investigator get to call this family and ask to see film that is only in the purview of the district attorney for the Hampden County? How many other people had their hands on the evidence before the chief prosecutor of the Commonwealth had a chance to see it? Dominic Sarno, 3 hours after Orlando was murdered, him and Commissioner Claproot made a statement that it was a justifiable shooting. No thorough investigation took place, no evidence, nothing. He said it was a justifiable shooting. He's not the district attorney. Captain Duda, who works for the Springfield Police Department, calls to sit down with the family to talk about and view the footage, and said we didn't need the district attorney. This is from a police department that is supposed to investigate itself, and the family is supposed to be okay with everything that's going on. This is a travesty. This young man was murdered by the Springfield Police Department. It was sanctioned by the mayor and underscored by the commissioner when she so lackadaisical quoted that no officer wakes up on a cold Sunday morning to go out and do what he did. One thing we know for sure, that Orlando Taylor III left out of his house alive, got in contact with the police, and was murdered. We want justice for this young man, and we want it to be known that Orlando Taylor III and his family have been working diligently to get him help for his mental health. 24 hours before Orlando Taylor III was murdered, his grandmother was on the phone as he sat on the couch, and his mother was on the other phone. And Orlando promised his family that he would go get some help. That Monday morning, they were going to reach out to the African Diaspora Mental Health Association to get help. The lie and the narrative spread about Orlando stops here. He was let down by the city and the mental health crisis here in the city of Springfield. His mother, 4 days before Orlando Taylor III was murdered, called Behavioral Health Network to get help for Orlando. And they said, and I quote, "There's nothing we can do unless he does something." Orlando Taylor III, his grandmother and his mother, have reached out to every mental health organization for help. And at every turn, Orlando was denied. Orlando had contact with the Behavioral Health Network. But when that officer met him, the grandmother is in the streets pleading with this police officer not to kill her grandson because he had issues. And that cop murdered him anyway. This was a young man who was gifted, intelligent, a child who was full of life, and they murdered him. And then Dominic Sarno has the nerve, not even 3 hours before anything, he said it was a justifiable shooting. And everybody ran with it. This young man had been trying to get help, and his family had tried to help him. But when it comes to the African American community here in the city of Springfield, we get denied access to treatment. Orlando Taylor III, I'm going to keep saying his name, Orlando Taylor III, was taken away from us, and there was nothing in place to save his life. Right where Orlando was murdered, down the street, is the Behavioral Health Network's so-called crisis center. That day, were they staffed? When the grandmother cried out, "Stop! Do not kill my grandson," the officer didn't stop because he wasn't trained to stop. He didn't know where to call for a crisis situation. Because Behavioral Health Network, the mayor who funds them hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, said that they have a program like Cahoots set up here in the city of Springfield. He lied, as he always have lied, and you guys have let him get away with it. Afraid to ask probing questions, afraid to do your reporting duties and look into these things. But all we get are sound bites, edited film that doesn't tell the story. This story will be told. Do you have any questions? Yes.
Yeah, you mentioned the footage is compromised. Could you just expand on what you mean by that?
Well, I don't have the authority to talk about what's compromised, but we know the only evidence that makes clear to us what happened was the story the grandmother told as she saw her grandson murdered. The story doesn't match the grandmother, it's insufficient, and everything else is a lie.
You watched, am I right in thinking, Minister Stokes, that you watched the footage with the family?
Yes.
The account, the grandmother, we spoke on Monday and she gave the account, and that was verified through watching the footage today.
What we saw today, and we can't speak on it, we saw 23-year-old Orlando Taylor III murdered by a Springfield police officer. That's what we saw.
Do you have confidence that the district attorney is going to come to that conclusion, that it was a murder?
I'm not a psychic, but I have 500 years of empirical information that it is okay to kill a black child, a black man, and nothing gets done. I don't have any confidence in the system of white supremacy to give a black man a break.
The Bud Williams, the mayor, Commissioner Clapwood are all asking for this footage to be made public. How do the family feel about this footage being made public?
Well, what we want, what the family wants, is the truth to be told. The family don't have any concerns about the video and who sees it. What the story is from the grandmother. And when she gets ready to articulate it, that's the only video that should be reported. That's the only pictures that matters. I want to pay close attention to what happened in Springfield, Massachusetts in 2022. You ever heard of slave catchers? You ever heard of slave catchers? And they run up on black Africans in this country and killed them and murdered them. 2021, his grandmother pleaded, "Do not murder my grandson. He suffers from mental illness." And they murdered him. They murdered him like it was slave catching days. Because it's okay to kill us. We don't expect any justice. But we know that God is a God of justice, and he shall not be mocked. And Dominic Sarno and all the rest of them will reap what they sow. Orlando Taylor III, we will have policies with his name on it that no another African American walking the streets of Springfield thank you, Lord, will ever get murdered again.
Because of a mental illness.
I know the #1 charter of the mayor in the city is safety. Last year, in this city, we had 17 unsolved homicides of African Latinos and African Americans in this city. Nothing has been said. Cases haven't been solved. And nobody says nothing. Since Dominic Sarno has been mayor, there have been close to 100 unsolved murders of African people in this community. If 100 white residents was killed in this city within that time span, this city would be in an uproar. Hell, if 17 black dogs were being murdered on these streets, the Animal Society and all you dog-loving people would be up in arms on why their dogs' homicides have not been solved. But when it comes to our people, nothing. You mentioned leadership, Bud Williams and the mayor. Do you know that they never reached out to this mother, this grandmother? Do you know that?
If they did, I mean, I hope you don't mind me saying, you've said that you don't actually want to meet with the mayor, and would it be traumatic if the mayor did reach out to you, or would you accept that invitation?
No, I would not. No, I would not. After listening to what he depicted about my grandson, why would I? Why would I? I know where I was supposed to be. I was supposed to be here. I had 3 people call my house to come to the mayor's office. If he wanted to apologize, he should have came out and did the same narrative he put on the TV and came out and said, well, I apologize. I might have jumped the gun.
If he gave you a formal apology, would that smooth things over with yourself?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I don't hate him, but right now, I don't like him. There needs to be an accountability, and I believe a change of guard might be necessary.
Mr. Stokes, you worked with the group more, correct?
Yes,
You guys had a press conference recently addressing the unsolved homicides in the city of Springfield.
yes.
Has the mayor reached out to speak with any of the parents or any of the families or any of the victims of those unsolved homicides? And has he reached out to any of the members of your organization to have a conversation about this?
No, the mayor has not reached out at any cause to talk to us about the unsolved homicides. His go-to line is, we can't help the community unless we have concrete evidence. And he says that you need to lock up the gangsters and thugs. But every time he arrests them, they get let out of court. The only thugs and gangsters that have been released from courts in the city of Springfield is Springfield police officers who beat up residents in Nathan Bills. They're the only gangsters, the only thugs and criminals that get released from prison.
Just one more question. That response, did he respond directly to Moore, or did he respond via the media?
He responded during the media, and he said it in front of a mother whose son was murdered in the community. And he said to the mother, looked her in her face and said, instead of protesting against my office, you should be marching to the courthouse because they keep letting off the criminals.
Okay. And just my last question to the family. Has the city of Springfield offered any type of mental health assistance, any trauma assistance to the family? Have you heard from any of the other departments, the police department, anybody offer? Being that the grandmother witnessed it, I think a few other family members may have you offered any trauma counseling at all? Okay.
Well, I just want to push back. There has, again, the only assistance that the family has gotten has been from the African Diaspora Mental Health Association, who reached out to the family. This is the ironic thing, 24 hours before Orlando was taken from us. They had decided as a cohesive family to seek assistance from the only reputable institution in Western Mass that's run by African American people that know how to deal with the cultural sensitivity. This mother has been to the courthouses, she has been to BHN, she has been all over. There's court document that this mother has been trying to get help from the city, from the mental health experts, and all of them denied her. This mother, this grandmother, unbeknownst to any of us, have been working hard to find a place because there's no advertising for health for African Americans. There's no concentrated effort to deal with the acute nature of white supremacy and systematic racism that is the reason why black people are killing each other. They are angry, they are frustrated, but we got our focus on the wrong enemy because we have not been taught better. And this is because of white supremacy and systematic racism. In the city of Springfield, in the public school system, there are no nonfiction books in our city that shows African people in a positive light. In our public school system, Springfield, Massachusetts is corrupt, insidious, and nasty with its behavior towards the African American population.
I just want to back up to the comments made about obviously calling BHN, asking for assistance for your son. Have you had any communication from BHN since?
No, she didn't. She hasn't had any. If she had had help from BHN, Orlando would be alive.
Thank you. That's the truth.
Okay.
Been begging, been to the courthouse.
You had mentioned that in the past, you had reached out to other institutions for mental health assistance because of the challenges. Can you name those organizations that he had worked with in the past?
Excuse me?
She had, what is
I'm
it?
sorry.
Go ahead, Darius.
No, when I spoke with you, I agree with you. You talked about different organizations that Orlando had, that you had sent to Orlando to in the past.
Yes, when he was younger,
Mhm.
he had went to Gandara, excuse me, and he also went to the American Red Cross. Not the American Red Cross. I'm sorry, Salvation Army on Pearl Street.
Okay.
Okay, he did go to those couple of places, and I also had tried to call different agencies to see the protocol of what had to be done. I never had to call crisis. I never had to do it, but I also know that he needed it. He definitely needed it.
Did you find those agencies or organizations to be culturally competent as it pertains to your grandson?
I can only go by what I hear on the phone. I don't know these people personally, and I can't see their faces.
Okay.
They just give me information.
Last question. Were the police aware of the fact, in the past, were the police aware prior to that day that Orlando?
I believe it's in the
had mental
system.
health
I can't say that, but I believe it's in the system.
I believe so, because several days before he was murdered, I had called BHN Crisis, and they asked me that I want officers sent out. I said, my son needs, I believe I said, a psychological evaluation. I don't believe that he needed to be in prison, that he needed to be in prison, but officers did come out to the house, and they did turn on their body cams. They did speak with him. So yes, I believe they know that. Also, I'd just like to say, I've been to the courthouse several times. Nothing anybody can do. No one can do anything. Nothing. On one occasion, they did, the best I could do is get him in there under something else, just to see if they can do, assess him or some type of treatment. He jumped the fence, and they said, that's it. There's nothing else they can do.
When was this that the officers came?
Several days before he was murdered, they came out to my house.
About a week or so, you
I
said?
say about a week before. Yeah.
I think it was
About 3
days. I believe it was days.
Yeah.
And what happened there? Can you talk about what happened with that interaction with the police?
Someone came out, I believe he worked with BHN Crisis alongside the police, several police officers, a lot of police officers. And they spoke with him. And basically, I was just told there was nothing they can do because he hadn't done anything.
So here's where we're at with this, insofar as you've heard the family, they've articulated they had help. Had there been something in place, as the mayor has said it is?
Amen.
The mayor has told this city that there's a behavioral health network crisis here. We've asked the mayor repeatedly, those of us so-called advocates, do you have a program that is set up like the Cahoots program that sends out reputable messengers with licensed clinicians that are culturally competent who look like us? We were told, yes, they have that in place. We've been in discussions with the mayor for the last 2 years. He said this is in place. And Orlando Taylor III was murdered right down the streets from where this so-called mental health crisis is at. It has all been a lie and a farce. And as the grandmother has said, that her grandson may be the sacrificial lamb, that we'll make sure that no other African American with mental health issues will ever be murdered again. We will not allow Orlando Taylor III's death to be in vain. We will do all we can as a community and as a city to make sure that we defund deficient programs and that African American people, we deal with our community. I'm going to make a quote to you from the great Dr. John Henry Clark. who said, there is nothing that has ever come out of the European mind that has been advantageous for African people. If we're to heal our people, it has to be done by us. If we want to stop the senseless violence and murders in our community, it has to be done from people like us. We're no longer considering allowing Kochi, allowing the judicial system to raise our children. We will no longer tolerate a school superintendent who makes close to $284,000 a year in a medium income community, less than $35,000 a year. And this school superintendent is over a school system that is deficient in adequately raising our children and educating them in any fashion. This has been a travesty that's gone on for too long. And remember the name. We're here for one reason. Orlando Taylor III, a 23-year-old, brilliant, bubbly, full of life. And the very thing he was afraid of, the police chased him down and murdered him. That's the truth. Everything else will be as it always is. They're going to lie. They're going to cover it up. You're not going to report it. You're not going to say nothing about it. You're going to edit and carve up. Weak leadership will come out and mumble nothing like mumble rappers. And y'all expect this is going to die down. Not this time. We won't allow this to happen to this family. Are there any more questions?
If you had to address black families, a black family that was dealing with mental health challenges with one of their young men or women, what advice would you give them, given everything that has occurred?
I would say, come on, let's go to the African Diaspora Mental Health Association. It's at 605 State Street, Springfield, Mass. And we talking code right next to CVS. Everybody know where that's at. And I would get our community to start seeking mental health services from the African Diaspora Mental Health Association. I'll ask our community to start investing in our community. I ask all of the religious leaders and pastors and bishops and imams, if you or any one of you can sit with Dominic Snarno, have fundraisers for him when he runs for mayor. Any of you Africans dealing with Dominic Sarno, after this has been exposed, you're just as worse to our community as he is. Just because he's paying you in your little non-profit organizations, state representatives who are elected, who are African American and Latino American, yet you stand with the mayor, you are betraying this community. And shame on you. Shame on you all. We're done. Thank you for coming out.
Did you want to say something?
I just wanted to know what could have been done differently. They said the help is there, and I've been seeking it. But no way not there. What can I have done differently to save my son?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve.